For the last 2 decades, road cyclists have been arguing about the same question. Is it better to ride the lightest bike possible or the most aerodynamic bike possible? The lightweight camp says, climb the mountain faster and you win the race. The Aero camp says, cut through the wind better and you save more energy than any climber ever will. Brands have built entire identities around this divide. Cannondale built the Super 6 series around climbing. Cervelo built the S5 around aerodynamics. Specialized has tried to win both arguments at once. The pros, depending on the stage, will literally swap between two completely different bikes in the same week of racing. So which one is actually faster? The answer involves physics, rider data, and a quiet truth that the marketing departments would prefer you ignore. And once you understand it, you might choose your next bike very differently. To understand the divide, you have to understand the two philosophies of modern road bike design. On one side, you have the pure climbing bike, the Cannondale Super 6 Evo at 690 grams, the Specialized Ethos at 685 grams, the Cervelo R5 at 692 grams, the Trek Imonda SLR at less than 700 grams. These bikes are built around a simple idea. Strip away every gram. Slim tubes, round profiles, minimal cabling, lightweight wheels. The result is a bike you can lift with one finger, a bike that almost floats up a steep climb, a bike that responds to every pedal stroke instantly. On the other side, you have the Aero road bike, the Cervelo S5, the Trek Madone SLR, the Specialized Venge in its earlier generations, and the current Tarmac SL8 with Aero touches, the Pinarello Dogma F, the Canyon Aeroad CFR, the Felt AR. These bikes use deep airfoil-shaped tubes, truncated camtail profiles, hidden cables, integrated cockpits, deep section wheels. The result is a bike that punches through the wind with measurably less drag, often at the cost of being 400 to 600 grams heavier than its lightweight counterpart. For most of cycling history, the conventional wisdom was simple. If you race in the mountains, ride a climber. If you race on flats and time trials, ride an aero bike. And for a while, that wisdom held. But somewhere around 2015, independent testing started telling a more nuanced story. And the story comes down to one number: the crossover speed. The crossover speed is the speed at which aerodynamics overtakes weight as the dominant force slowing you down. Below that speed, weight matters more. Above that speed, aerodynamics matters more. And here's the part the cycling industry rarely says out loud. The crossover speed is roughly 15 miles per hour, give or take, based on terrain and wind. That is well below the average speed of any club ride, any race, and any solo training session done by an even moderately fit cyclist. Which means for the vast majority of road riding, aerodynamics is the more important factor, not weight. This is why the Aero camp gets loud at the local cafe ride. They are not wrong. Most riders, most of the time, are riding at speeds where aero shapes save more energy than light bikes do. A measurable, repeatable, real-world effect. But the climbing camp also has a real argument, because the crossover math changes when the road goes up. When a rider hits a steep gradient, their speed drops dramatically. A typical cyclist climbing an 8% grade is moving at 6 to 10 miles per hour, well below the Aero crossover. At those speeds, aerodynamics barely matter, and every gram you are dragging up the hill costs energy. A bike that is 500 grams lighter on a 30-minute climb saves a measurable amount of time. Not a huge amount, often only 15 to 30 seconds. But on a long climb, in a long race, those seconds matter. This is exactly why pro teams hand their riders different bikes on different stages. On flat sprint stages, you see riders on Cervelo S5s and Trek Madones. On mountain stages, The same riders will switch to the lightest climbing bike in their team's quiver. They are not confused. They are optimizing. So far, so good. The two camps each have a clear domain. Aero wins on the flats. Lightweight wins on the steep climbs. However, this is where the story takes an interesting turn, because the cycling industry quietly noticed something. The pros were not actually that different from each other. The aero bikes were getting lighter. The climbing bikes were getting more aerodynamic. And by the late 2010s, every major brand had started converging on a single platform. The all-rounder. The Specialized Tarmac SL8. The Trek Emonda. The Cervelo R5 in its newer generations. The Cannondale Super 6 Evo Lab 71. The Pinarello Dogma F. The Canyon Ultimate CFR. These bikes are not pure climbers, and they are not pure aero bikes. They are something in between. Light enough to climb with anyone. Aero enough to hold a draft on the flats. They have largely killed the dedicated aero road bike at the top of the sport. The Specialized Venge was discontinued. The Cannondale System 6 is no longer the brand's flagship. The Trek Madone has merged with the Emonda into the new Madone SLR. The pure aero road bike, as a separate category, is fading into history, and the pure climbing bike is getting reshaped with aero tube profiles too. Why did this happen? Because independent wind tunnel testing from sources like Aero Coach, Bicycle Rolling Resistance, and team-published data made one thing clear. The aero penalty of a modern lightweight bike is small, and the weight penalty of a modern aero bike is also small. Engineers found ways to add aero shaping that costs only a few grams. Engineers found ways to remove material that costs only a few watts. The two ideas merged, and the result is a bike that is faster than either pure category was a decade ago. And this is where the everyday rider has to honestly look at themselves in the mirror. If you are an average road cyclist riding at 16 to 20 miles per hour on rolling terrain, an aero bike will save you more energy than a lightweight bike every single ride. Period. The crossover math is in your favor. If you live in a flat region, the answer is even more obvious. Aero wins. The watts saved compound across every minute of every ride. If you are a climber, a real climber, the kind of rider who lives in the mountains and routinely tackles long, sustained gradients above 7%, then weight starts mattering more, but only on the climbing portions of the ride. On the descents and the flat valleys between climbs, aero still wins. So even for hill country riders, the all-rounder bike wins the average ride. If you are a racer, the answer becomes more situational. Pick your weapon based on the course. But for training rides, the modern all-rounder beats both pure categories on every metric except one: weight on a steep climb. And even there, the gap is shrinking every model year. So what does this mean for the next time you are shopping for a road bike? Forget the aero versus lightweight debate. It was settled by the engineers years ago, even if the marketing departments have not caught up. The right answer for almost every rider is an all-rounder bike like the Specialized Tarmac SL8, the Trek Emonda, the Cannondale Super 6 Evo Lab 71, the Cervelo R5, or the Pinarello Dogma F. These bikes have absorbed the best of both philosophies. They are lighter than yesterday's aero bikes. They are more aerodynamic than yesterday's climbing bikes. And they win the race that actually matters, which is the race against your own previous time on the same loop you have been riding for years. The honest verdict is this: aero bikes are faster than lightweight bikes for most riders, on most rides, in most conditions. But the modern all-rounder is faster than either pure aero or pure lightweight. In almost every real-world scenario you will face. The era of choosing between two philosophies is over. The bike industry just hasn't gotten around to telling you yet. Pick the all-rounder. Save your obsession for the part of the bike that actually matters most, which is the engine sitting on top of it. Thanks for watching. If you want more clear-eyed answers about the questions cyclists keep arguing about online, stick around for more.